Weapons is playing a joke on you. Everything about this film, from the trailer to the tone to the premise, suggested an elevated horror film in the vein of any number of A24 or Neon offerings in the past 10 years. You know, films where the real villain was insert interpersonal/cultural/political crisis here all along. But despite its packaging, Weapons is not that kind of horror film. In fact, it's Naruto running at full speed away from that kind of horror film. But if that's the case, what kind of horror film is it? Well,
Rewatching.
I'm just making sure, because I'm gonna, explain it to you. So, Weapons is a film that is quite literally brimming with mastery. Not only is it one of the most visually striking horror films of the 2020s, it's also one of the most narratively compelling. The split perspective structure and nonlinear storytelling allow the film to continually unfold in fresh and exciting ways, even when retracing the same plot beat from multiple points of view. The horror of Weapons is so effective because, like most great art, it's able to steal from the greats in its setups while consistently delivering originality in its payoffs. There's not a single scare scene that can't be clocked from a mile away, but impressively, the predictability of it all never dulls the impact. The classic horror tropes are out on full display here, but Creggers and company package them with such wit and confidence that they never feel tired or played out. But the thing is, most of that praise could be equally applied to any number of quote-unquote elevated horror films from the past decade. But where those movies aim to unearth some grand thematic revelation about the personal or the political, Weapons shirks those lofty intentions entirely, instead opting to weaponize those aesthetics to force you to take it seriously, right before it pulls the rug out from under you by, spoiler alert, concluding with a classroom's worth of school children ripping apart a vampiric witch limb from limb in almost cartoonishly slapstick fashion. But that's not to say that Weapons doesn't tackle serious subject matter. We're talking about a movie that deals with missing children, addiction, trauma, and worse. And Weapons doesn't trivialize these issues, but where an elevated horror film might grapple with these things abstractly and buried in subtext, Weapons drags them to the forefront of the narrative, fully literalized. In Hereditary, sure, the villain is a demon-worshipping cult, but under the surface, it's generational trauma. In Get Out, sure, the villain is the Armitage family, but under the surface, it's white liberal racism.
I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could.
In Weapons, however, the villain is just a creepy old witch. Creggers doesn't present the witch as an allegorical stand-in for anything other than whatever each viewer might want her to represent. You could interpret her as a manifestation of the way our institutions fail children, or how older generations tend to hoard resources from the young, acting as parasites on their life force and potential. Or you could interpret her as simply a supernatural entity that will do whatever it takes to stay alive. The real difference is, Creggers isn't asking you to decode her. He's simply telling you a story and letting the chips fall where they may. And this isn't just me reading between the lines here. Throughout the Weapons press junket, Creggers has made it crystal clear he doesn't think we need another horror as a metaphor for grief movie. Despite the script being inspired by the loss of Creggers' good friend and collaborator Trevor Moore in 2021, Weapons makes space for grief mostly in tone and atmosphere, rather than allow it to overtake the narrative in heavy-handed thematic gesturing. Creggers doesn't intellectualize his writing. He leaves that part to us.
I really try not to intellectualize anything, really, when I'm writing. It's a very personal movie. I don't have a statement. The movie's not political to me. It's a completely introverted kind of diary entry.
And ultimately, this is the joke that Weapons is playing on us. The stark trailers, the grim premise, and the classy marketing campaign got us all whipped up into a frenzy of expectations, thinking we were about to coronate the next Hereditary or The Lighthouse. But once we actually saw the movie, it became abundantly clear that Weapons owes much more to Sam Raimi than it does to Robert Eggers. Weapons knows you're expecting big themes. It knows you're expecting metaphor. It knows you're expecting to put your thinking cap on. That's the setup. The punchline, of course, is watching Josh Brolin stare dumbfounded at a giant assault rifle floating over the witch's lair. It's as if Creggers is literally saying to us, you wanted symbolism? You wanted metaphor? Alright, cool. Here you go, dipshit. And yes, I know he said he doesn't have a specific stated intention for that rifle, but that means it's open to interpretation. And my interpretation is that he put that there to fuck with us. And if that's true, even a little bit, it's both hilarious and extremely fitting for a guy who cut his teeth in sketch comedy to troll the artsiest and fartsiest among us by delivering the symbolism via starter home-sized assault rifle. So why the bait and switch? Well, it's at least partially because you don't get headlines like these without utilizing something like A24's patented bag of elevated horror marketing tricks. It's what made filmmakers like Astor, Eggers, Peele, and Perkins modern horror royalty. Everybody knows the entertainment media loves crowning a new master of horror every few years. Creggers is just the latest in a long line of twisted minds. But on the other hand, maybe it was in an effort to redefine what elevated horror can look and feel like, to prove these films can still feel artful without overt messaging or allegorical narratives, to remind audiences that horror doesn't have to be dumb to be fun, and that as long as the execution is elevated, the horror follows suit, even without all the academic undertones. If you went into this movie expecting some grand statement about the horror of living in 2025 America, you probably left feeling a bit deflated. But if you meet it on its own terms and allow Creggers to warp your expectations till you forgot you had any, you might just come away with the unmistakable impression that Weapons is now the new standard bearer for elevated horror, and all without ever really trying to be. So as always, thanks so much to everyone who made it this far. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch y'all soon.